In a world where 7 of Earth's mightiest superheroes are owned by mega conglomerate Vought, there exists a group of mercenaries whose sole purpose is to expose the truth behind the corruption and rampant misuse of power by those considered by most as saviors. Following the gruesome death of his girlfriend Robin at the hands of A-Train, Hughie meets Billy, a man with a vendetta against superheroes, who convinces him to plant a bug inside the Seven's headquarters. Translucent, the invisible soup with diamond skin, catches Hughie in the act and later attacks him at work. Billy saves him, and the hero is locked up. As the Seven search for Translucent, Billy and Frenchie devise a method to kill Translucent before it's too late. Translucent convinces Hughie to set him free, but when his instincts tell him not to trust the soup, he pulls the trigger, causing Translucent to explode. Meanwhile, Annie, the newest member of the Seven, also known as Starlight, discovers the sinister underbelly of the business. Hughie washes off the blood from his body while Billy and Frenchie gather and scoop up Translucent's remains into garbage bags. Hughie apologizes for the mess, but Billy assures he did them a favor. Additionally, Frenchie has disabled the soup's tracking chip, so Hughie doesn't need to worry. Seconds later, Hughie wants to return home to get some clothes, but Billy and Frenchie don't think it's a good idea since he just blew up one of the most famous people in America. However, Hughie is adamant on going, so Billy insists Frenchie tag along, and the young man begrudgingly agrees. Billy puts the bags of Translucent's body in a chest and blows up the scene with grenades before leaving. Meanwhile, Starlight nervously enters Madeline's office to meet about her viral crime-fighting video. Anxious, Starlight tries to explain her side, but Madeline stops her and says the victim saw the video and came forward to thank the soup. Ashley excitedly shares that Starlight's popularity has increased dramatically since the video's release. Afterward, Seth and Evan from marketing reveal a new costume for Starlight, which she finds unnecessary since it doesn't represent who she is. She's fine with her old costume and has the right to choose what to wear since it's her body. Still, Madeline maintains that Starlight won't be part of the Seven if she doesn't wear the new costume. Later, Hughie arrives at the apartment, and a news report regarding A-Train's upcoming race against Shockwave plays on the TV. The young man instructs Frenchie to stay outside while he gets his clothes. In his room, Hughie is disgusted to see Seven merchandise everywhere. Furious, he thrashes his room, but also accidentally breaks his and his late girlfriend Robin's picture. Moments later, Hugh, his father, hears the commotion and expresses his concern for his son's recent behavior. He's contacted Hughie's pediatrician and gotten some names of professionals that can help him deal with his problems. Defensively, Hughie lists his grudges against his father. Before he leaves, his guilt compels him to apologize to Hugh for the outburst. At the Juvenile Detention Center, Mother's Milk, or MM, reprimands 2 delinquents fighting. When he returns to his office, he's surprised but not pleased to find his old friend Billy. Billy invites him to join the mission, but MM refuses, stating his contentment with his job and quiet family life. To convince MM, Billy reveals that they killed Translucent and explains how they did it. Billy wants to bring down the Seven and Vought simultaneously and lies that he's not seen Frenchie for years. In Madeline's office, Homelander worries about Translucent's dead tracking chip. Unbothered, Madeline is sure the diamond-skinned superhero will be fine. Madeline then gives Homelander some talking points for the military contract, but he chuckles, saying he can easily sell himself to the military. Elsewhere inside a moving van, MM mocks Billy for having a rental vehicle for headquarters. Moments later, Hughie and Frenchie arrive, and when MM sees the latter, the 2 men get into a scuffle regarding a past issue that ruined their working relationship. Billy breaks up the fight and MM's cell phone rings, so he answers the call. His cheesy conversation with his wife makes Billy and Frenchie laugh, cutting the tension. Minutes later, the gang spies on Popclaw, A-Train's girlfriend. Outside the apartment building, Popclaw's landlord, Alec, reminds her about the overdue rent payment. The group plans to place bugs inside Popclaw's apartment, but Hughie says he can program her electronic devices and gain access to the feed through her computer. Outside the woman's apartment, MM and Hughie pretend to be Bryman Audio employees upgrading the building's network. Fortunately, Popclaw lets them in without a fuss and Hughie hacks into her devices, showing Billy and Frenchie multiple angles of the apartment, leaving them impressed. When MM and Hughie leave, they run into A-Train, who doesn't recognize the man he scorned. Shocked, Hughie is speechless, so MM moves him along to not appear suspicious. At the 7 Tower, while Queen Maeve trains, she receives a call from Homelander who wants to talk. Moments later, Homelander tells Maeve he's worried Translucent's disappearance could be the start of an organized takedown of all supes. They casually continue the conversation while preparing to confront a shooter in a high-rise building. On the 31st floor of the building, Homelander channels his frustration with Madeline and Translucent's disappearance and punches the shooter through the chest, ending his life. To justify the brutal elimination, Maeve agrees to let Homelander shoot the gun at her chest so it appears as though they retaliated in self-defense. That night, the gang watches the surveillance feed of Popclaw and A-Train being intimate. A-Train is concerned about losing the race tomorrow because Madeline warned him that if he loses, he'll be kicked out of the 7. A-Train thinks of using Compound V for the race, but Popclaw mentions that the last time he used it, he ran through Robin. However, A-Train still wants to use the serum to win the race. He tells his girlfriend she can't accompany him tomorrow, despite telling her Madeline had approved of the couple's appearance. The woman feels betrayed and upset when she realizes A-Train never talked to Madeline about them. Although he sees Popclaw is upset, A-Train still asks for the Compound V. The woman hands him a duffel bag, and the soup takes out a vial of blue liquid. In the moving van, Hughie wonders what Compound V is, and MM thinks it's a performance enhancer. Billy wants them to steal a sample of Compound V so they have proof that superheroes aren't as gifted as people think. The next day at the racetrack, while MM places a mic on Hughie, the young man admits taking translucent out felt good. MM, however, warns him not to get consumed by the job and that everything comes with a price. Meanwhile, Frenchie is in the air duct above A-Train's locker room, preparing to steal Compound V. Outside, the announcer introduces Starlight, who's wearing her new costume, accompanied by Black Noir. By the sidelines, a reporter interviews Maeve, but Homelander interrupts them with his grand entrance. Elsewhere in the building, Starlight is having a meet and greet with fans when a young girl wearing a replica of her old costume asks for a selfie. She compliments the costume and the girl says she's saving up to get the new one, upsetting Starlight. As she's about to advise the girl not to buy the new costume, men in the crowd begin throwing rude remarks at Starlight, so she takes a break from the meet and greet. On stage, Maeve and Homelander wave to the crowd and he reminisces about their past relationship. Homelander questions why they ever broke up, but Maeve doesn't want to talk about it. Sinisterly, he admits he might not be able to handle seeing Maeve with someone else, causing her to walk away from him. When Billy says A-Train is on the field, Frenchie climbs down from the duct. Outside the room, Hughie, posing as a photographer, recognizes Starlight as Annie from the park a few days ago. He sees that she's about to enter the locker room, so he calls her name and distracts her just in time before she catches Frenchie hanging on a rope. Billy says Frenchie needs more time and wants Hughie to stall Starlight. Hughie invites her for a drink and nachos, to which she agrees. In the locker room, Frenchie rummages through A-Train's belongings but finds no Compound V. While Starlight and Hughie enjoy their snacks, she opens up about the difficulties of being a member of the 7. He tells her to quit if she isn't happy, which the young woman contemplates. Before she leaves to join the other supes, Starlight gives Hughie her number. Seconds before the race begins, A-Train rushes away to take Compound V and is back on the field in milliseconds. Billy alerts the others that A-Train has taken the substance and they still don't know where he stashed it. While watching the feed, MM sees Popclaw in her apartment holding a vial of V. A-Train wins the race easily and sets a new world record. After the race, the group returns to the moving van and watches Popclaw inject herself with the blue substance following A-Train's claim that he's single during the press conference. The group watches in awe at the woman lifting an impossible amount of weight seconds after taking Compound V. Moments later, Alec knocks on the door asking for her rent. She invites him in, notices him looking at her pictures on the wall, and seduces him. They roleplay a superhero and burglar scenario with Popclaw ending up sitting on his head. At first, Alec is into it, but with the effects of the Compound V increasing her strength, she unknowingly crushes the man's head with her thighs. Billy and Frenchie rush to her apartment and use the situation as an opportunity to blackmail Popclaw into telling them everything she knows about Compound V. At 7 Tower, Homelander and the Deep show Madeline the box with translucent remains. Homelander is convinced it was planned because the perpetrators used a box made of zinc, the only material his X-ray vision can't penetrate. When the Deep lifts the lid up, spray painted inside is the phrase, "Coming for you." Homelander considers the threat a declaration of war. The next day, Billy dreams of his wife Becky convincing him to see a concert. After getting up from bed, he grabs breakfast and watches footage of Becky in a park. Later, Billy goes to Deputy Director Susan's office and tells the woman he can stop the supes from getting into the military. Billy shows her photographs of Popclaw and A-Train using Compound V, but she dismisses his proof since it'll never hold up unless he has an actual sample of the substance. Minutes later, Billy calls Popclaw to tell her the information she gave about A-Train and where he gets the Compound V is useless because they've staked it out for a week and have come up empty-handed. Popclaw swears the Compound V is from the location she gave him because A-Train always returns with noodles after each run. Billy reminds her that she'd better be telling the truth, or they'll upload her incriminating video online. Meanwhile, Frenchie, MM, and Hughie are outside the noodle shop to investigate. Moments later, Frenchie spots a suspicious-looking man with a gun, so they follow the guy to the back of a supermarket. They sneak past armed men and Frenchie unlocks a door into a hallway filled with boxes. When none of the boxes contain Compound V, they head into another room. While MM and Hughie search for the substance, Frenchie notices a disheveled girl in prison imprisoned in a cell in the corner. Frenchie thinks they should help the young woman, but MM says they need to stick to the plan. Still, Frenchie opens the cell door, alerting the armed men. To their surprise, the girl handily takes out her captors using her superhuman strength, and the last man shoots himself after seeing what she's done to his comrades. When the woman moves to attack them, the group locks themselves up in the cell to stay out of her reach. Elsewhere, the Deep vents his feelings of underappreciation from Vought and the other members of the Seven. The therapist advises him to self-actualize and know his worth. Hours later, Billy arrives to join the others in searching the place for clues. MM finds a syringe used with compound V, proving that this is the place where A-Train runs the substance. They also believe the men were injecting the girl with it. MM tattles that Frenchie didn't follow the plan, but Frenchie thinks the girl is innocent. Afterward, Hughie receives a text from Starlight, so Billy instructs him to ask her out on a date to get information. Hughie is hesitant because he thinks she's not a bad person, but Billy argues she's corruptible just like all supes. Meanwhile, Madeline discusses how to spin Translucent's death to the public with Seth and Evan. They decide on a story that the supe perished during a classified mission. Seconds later, Madeline receives word that a mid-Atlantic flight has been hijacked. Later, she instructs Homelander and Queen Maeve to defuse the situation and save the passengers. Doing so will make it impossible for Congress to reject the supes in the military deal. Elsewhere, Frenchie meets with Cherie to procure concentrated halothane to incapacitate the woman from the cell. Outside the supermarket, A-Train sees an ambulance carting away his men in body bags. At the Seven Tower, the Deep informs Madeline he'd like to head a mission to take down Oceanland for their poor treatment of their animals. Madeline refuses to grant him permission, especially since he's the centerpiece of the Oceanland Fall campaign and they can't risk losing the deal. Madeline feels the Deep's endeavors to be unimportant at the moment, so she sends him on his way. Later that day, A-Train confronts Popclaw and asks who she's told about Compound V. Popclaw insists she told no one, but the man is certain she is the only person he told. Popclaw argues that she felt disrespected by his denial of their relationship during the press conference, and he explains that he was told to say those things to help his brand. When the woman calms down, A-Train asks her again if she told anybody about the substance, but she continues to deny his allegation. Frustrated, A-Train tells her to pack a bag so he can take her somewhere safe in case Homelander finds out they messed up. Meanwhile, the feral girl goes to the back room of a salon and violently attacks an older woman. Later, Starlight and Hughie go on a date in a bowling alley. The sound of the pins crashing triggers Hughie's memory of blowing Translucent up. Rattled, he starts an unprompted conversation about the invisible superhero with Starlight, which she finds weird but ultimately entertains. Starlight says Translucent is a loner who spends most of his free time with his son, racking Hughie with guilt. On the hijacked flight, Homelander and Maeve effortlessly dispose of the rebels in the cabin and the passengers applaud their heroics. One of the hijackers is in the cockpit, aiming a gun at the pilot's head. Maeve and Homelander try to negotiate, but the man fires the gun, prompting Homelander to shoot lasers to take him down. Unfortunately, the lasers also destroyed the plane's control panel. Maeve panics and instructs Homelander to lift the plane, but he claims he can't do it with nothing to stand on. Maeve proposes he take the passengers one by one and fly them to the ground, but Homelander knows he won't have enough time to save everyone. When the passengers turn hysterical, Homelander pretends everything will be alright, but the people sense he's about to leave them. The people begin crowding around him begging to be saved, so he threatens to shoot them with his laser eyes if they don't step back. As he stands by the door, he reaches out his hand for Maeve to join him, but the woman is conflicted. She compromises and pleads with him to take 2 kids with them. Homelander refuses because he doesn't want anyone to survive and tell the world they left everyone else to perish. Eventually, Maeve takes his hand and the 2 supes watch the plane plummet. In the city, the group arrives at the salon to investigate the older woman's death. Apparently, the victim is known in the area for bringing girls from Asia into the country, the girl in the cell possibly one of them. When they see A-Train also following the feral girl's tracks, they leave. Billy worries that A-Train might find the girl first, but Frenchie thinks she's headed to Penn Station from the burnt paper he found near her cell. In the bowling alley, Hughie admits he's suspicious of Starlight, wondering if she's holding back her powers to not scare him away. When he challenges her to play to her abilities, she easily rolls a strike. At Penn Station, MM's contact tells him the boxes in the supermarket came from Samaritan's Embrace, Ezekiel's religious group. The 3 split up to search for the feral girl, and Frenchie eventually finds her in the tech store. The girl is wary of Frenchie, so he tells her a story to convince her he's not a bad guy. But when the TV suddenly changes programs, it startles the girl and she runs away. On the date, Starlight discusses her failed past relationship with Hughie, which forced her to never show her strength to a boy she likes. She asks if it bothers him that she's better than him at everything, and he answers that he likes it when he sees the real her. Suddenly, Hughie hallucinates seeing Robin while Starlight excuses herself to use the restroom. With the supe away, Hughie clones Starlight's cell phone with a small device. At the station, Frenchie and MM argue about why he didn't gas the girl. Out of anger, MM brings up what happened with with Lamplighter and Mallory, their boss. He claims that Frenchie didn't follow direct orders, which led to Lamplighter slaying Mallory's grandchildren. The two get into a scuffle which Billy breaks up. When they're about to quit the mission, Billy convinces them to stay using a Spice Girls analogy. Just like the pop group, they are more successful together than they are apart. Meanwhile, the Deep rescues a dolphin from Oceanland, placing it on a harness in the back of a van. The authorities catch up to him and block the road, forcing him to step on the brakes. The force launches the animal from the harness and through the windshield. The dolphin lands on the street where a large truck runs it over. In the station, the men finally see the girl running on the tracks and chase her. Suddenly, A-Train zooms in and scoops the girl up. The girl acts quickly and grabs his head, making him drop her. She tries to escape, but can't outrun his super speed. A-Train throws her through a brick wall and proceeds to slam her head over and over. When the group sees A-Train beating the girl up, Frenchie causes a distraction by diverting the people's attention to the soup. A-Train drops the girl and is forced to interact with his fans, allowing her to escape in a tunnel. Frenchie wants to try and speak to the girl first before they decide to gas her, but when the girl attacks Frenchie, Billy tosses the halothane, knocking them both out. Later, Queen Maeve weeps on the beach where the plane crashed. A newscaster overhears Homelander say that they didn't have to die. Meanwhile, Madeline watches Homelander deliver his insincere speech. The soup lies that they arrived 3 minutes after the plane went down because of Superhero's absence from the chain of command. Pretending to sympathize, Homelander says if Supes were in the military, that incident would have never happened, and the crowd agrees.
Subscribe to watch more videos like this, turn on notifications and leave a like to help the channel out. Thank you for watching.